Good evening, ladies. I just want to start out by saying thank you to each and every one who is here this evening, and for the elders for allowing me this time to speak to you. You're an encouragement to me. We need ladies' help in personal evangelism. My husband always says we are the key to create an evangelistic atmosphere. If we don't do it, nobody else will. The Lord is depending on us to do our part. I just kind of want to start out and just kind of give you a brief history of our family. Of course, I am Nicole Whitacre, and I grew up on a little farm in Cottontown, Tennessee. And most people are like, where is that? The closest I can explain it, it's kind of in between Gallatin and Portland. And I really didn't even live near Cottontown, I just had the Cottontown address. And I actually live closer to Portland. And I met Rob during my second year at Free Hardeman. He and his sister, his sister and I roomed together at Free Hardeman. And when we started rooming together, she calls home, because this was kind of in between a semester. She calls home and tells Mama, she says, Mom, I've met Rob's wife. You need to come meet her. And so I didn't know that any of this was going on in the background. All I knew was Mama was coming to meet me. And so she did. And I kept noticing every time I would speak, she's like, oh, that's just like Rob. That's just like Rob. I thought, oh boy, here we go again, another mother trying to set me up. And so she left and went home and told my father-in-law, she says, now Gary, I've met Rob's wife, but we've got to get her to come to Texas. And she says, I'm not sure how we're going to do this, but we've got to come up with a plan. And so they came up with a plan. Little did I know, I was going home with her for spring break to meet her brother. And we did. We met each other, and we had a long-distance relationship because he was there, of course, in preaching school at the time at Southwest School of Bible Studies in Austin, Texas. And of course I was in Tennessee. And so luckily though, his daddy worked for Delta Airlines, so he was able to come visit me quite frequently. And so we married in August 10th of 1996. So we've been married just over 25 years. And we have the two children, Hannah, who is 23, and our son Jared, who is 19. And from preaching school, of course we got married right in between his first and second year of school. And I was thankful I was able to go to school with him, because that taught me a lot about my roles as a preacher's wife. And so when we moved, of course I was trying to get closer to home, we moved to Poole, Kentucky. And that is a very small farm community of 300. And so when we moved, as you can tell, Rob is very evangelistic. So I mean, the minute we moved, he asked the elders, he says, what can I do to get involved in the community? And they said, well, we've got it. You know, he was thinking, you know, they're going to tell him to do this or do that. And they said, well, we know what you need to do. You need to go to the local post office in the morning. He looks over at me and says, post office? What do you want the post office for? Well, literally, when you go to the post office in Poole, at least one family member is there waiting for their mail to get in the box. So they sit and talk and drink their coffee. So that was a great way for us to get to know the community. And then later on, Rob became the girls' head soccer coach in Webster County. We started the program. So, and when we started that, we really started knowing the community. And we were of course able to convert the assistant coach and his wife, the local barber, the superintendent of music of the Methodist Church, among many others that we converted while we were there. We lived there 4.5 years. And from there, we moved to Hillsboro, which is just right outside of Manchester. And when we moved there, they did a lot of door knocking. And so we had done some door knocking, but not to the extent that they had done. They were doing door knocking once a year in the local community. And then not only were we doing that, we were going to West Virginia and doing a door knocking campaign as well there. So we learned a lot there from about door knocking. And we lived there 5.5 years, and I, of course, built my first home. So I thought, oh, I don't think, we didn't have any plans of going anywhere else. I thought this is where we're going to be. Well, God had other plans for us. We had been approached by Willette when we just lived there at Hillsboro for a year, and they wanted us to come then. And Rob had promised Hillsboro we would not do that. We would not leave them within a year. You know, we told them we'd at least stay 5 years. And so we were not going to do that. And so, but after we'd been there 5.5 years, the elders again approached us. And we were really trying to close that door. Because here again, you know, I was just like, oh, I just don't know about moving, you know. I didn't, you know, we built this home and everything. And so, but we could not close this door. God was opening the doors wider and wider for us to go. And so, we did. We moved to Willette, which is in Red Bowling Springs, Tennessee. And we lived there 11 years. So that was basically where our children was raised, and that's home to them. And we were able to convert a third of the congregation there. So when we were approached 4 years ago from Alan Webster about moving to Jacksonville, where we reside now, it was a hard decision because we knew we were going to be leaving family. We were very, very close to the congregation there, and here again, I built another dream home, and I thought, oh, I'm just going to stop building the dream home. This is not working for me. So when Rob was seeing the numbers and seeing how the church was really declining, he and I talked. We said, well, we know that this is where we need to be, and so that is what we did. We started the School of Evangelism from basically nothing. We had no idea what we were getting into when we started the school 4 years ago. But it has grown a lot. We've been able to grow ourselves and learn a whole lot more to be able to where we are today, to teach congregations what we have learned through the years. And we are so thankful we've had this opportunity to speak to you this week. Okay, ladies, now let's get started. The fun begins. The first ingredient could be sending cards to those who are sick, someone who is dealing with cancer, someone who's recently had surgery, someone that might just need some encouragement, or someone that has lost a family member. And then on page 105 in your Evangelism Simplified book, there is a list that says finding prospects. This is who we're looking for, because in everybody's life, whether it be a family or friend, they're going to go through something's going to change in their life, but they're going to go through one of these categories. There's 35 categories, and when we want to start showing them the love of the church, that's when we need your help, ladies, as far as getting those names to whoever it may be that will be doing the contact list. It is important to show compassion to those that we want to reach. In Jude 22 it reads, "And of some have compassion, making a difference." On page 104, you are going to find the prayer list or the contact list. Ladies, this is very important. as I said, this is when we need those names. When you find somebody, we want to start prospecting them. And so we need their name, the relation, who they are to you, if it's a family member to you or a friend. A description, what's wrong with them, what kind of cards do we need to send them. We put that there, and then we put their address. Now over here you're going to see single and multiple. Well, when we first put a name on, we of course want to put multiple. That way they're going to get a lot of cards from the church. And then the DA is the date added. So what we suggest is that when you put that date on there and you have been sending cards for up to 4 weeks and they have not come to visit you, what we suggest through the school is finding a family member or family of one of the members here at the congregation. You go and check on them, visit them, see how they're doing. I know, ladies, this is kind of outside of our box. It wasn't until recently we got a phone call from an eldership in Crossville, Tennessee, and they told us, they said this was one of the hardest things that we knew we were needed to do, but because we just were so unsure about going to somebody's door, you know, and how they were going to perceive us, and he said, you know, it was really eye-opening when we did it. And they said they went to the door, they introduced themselves, told them that they were from the Crossville Church of Christ. And I mean, immediately, right after that lady, they said that the lady grabs his wife and pulls her into the house and says, you need to see this. And so they went in and they said, I want you to look on this wall. And she showed them a wall. Well, it was a wall full of cards that they had received from the church. And they were saying how impressed they were with the congregation. And then they pointed over to another wall that had nothing on it. And they said, this is what our church has done for us. We have been so impressed with the church that you attend. When we feel better, start feeling better, we're going to come and visit you. So they were just so thankful, because it is nerve-wracking going to somebody's house that we may not know and see what the reaction is. But as more and more congregations are doing this, they're getting such good results from it. But a lot of times when you start showing people that you really care about them, they're curious. They're going to want to come see you and see, who are these people that are sending you these sweet cards and writing you these sweet notes. And what we do, what we did at Jacksonville and at Willette, the elders divided us up into groups, and we would meet on a Sunday night. Some at Willette, some meet before services, and some of us meet after services. And we just kind of go over our list and get the cards that we need to send, and then we gather them up. Now, one thing we don't want you to do is to mail them all out on Monday. We want to space them out. So if you get 30 cards, maybe you do 5 cards a day, you know. And then that way they're not just overwhelmed all at once. They're going to get them slowly, and they're going to start looking forward to going to the mailbox to see who has written them a card. So when a person receives 2 to 3 cards a day in their mailbox, it will have a positive effect. Don't ever underestimate the power of a card. In November of 2020, we received a phone call from Miss Tony Adams. She had been receiving house to house and saw that we offered free transportation to our services. Now, Miss Tony was originally from Alabama. She got married and moved off to Indiana. Well, she had lost her husband, and her sisters and brother really wanted her to move back to Alabama so they could help take care of her. And so that's what she did. And as soon as they got her moved here, COVID hit. Once COVID hit, they called her and they didn't want to have anything to do with it. And so that was why she reached out to the church. She said, I can't stand to be looking at these 4 walls all day long and not get to see people, and nobody's coming to visit me, and I just need to find a church home. And so when she reached out to us, we started picking her up, and it just so happened to be that Cade Summers, the associate minister, lives rather close to her, and so he started picking her up and getting to know her. And Miss Tony now had lots of questions, and Cade is a high school teacher, and so he likes to answer questions, but he knew he wasn't supposed to answer her questions. And so we said, just hold off, Cade. When we get there, we will get to talk to her and get to know her as well. And so we did. When we got home, we just took her out to get to know her. Well, as we were getting to know her, we found out that week she was going to have her 80th birthday. And Rob says, well, that's an exciting time. Is your family coming, or are they helping to celebrate with you? No, nobody's coming. And Rob's like, okay, we will. Where's your favorite restaurant? And she told us Red Lobster, and we got together and took her out to Red Lobster for her birthday. And then Cade and his boys got her balloons and cake. And so she was really enjoying all the attention that she was receiving at this time, because we were sending her cards when she started coming. And then she got sick. We were able to do the first study with Miss Tony, but because when she got sick, we had to postpone them for a while. It literally took her ladies 3 months to get over COVID. But the church did her job. We were taking her food to her doorstep. We were calling on her, checking up on her, sending those cards, whatever she needed during that time. We were helping her. And so when she got to feeling better, she immediately called again and says, I'm ready to come back to services. So we started picking her up again. And of course, when somebody's receiving all this love, it's not very hard to say, would you like to know more about the church? And so when you say that line, majority of the time they're going to say yes. They want to know more. And so we were able to do those second and third studies. Now, I knew Miss Tony was really, really nervous. Something was really bothering her about baptism, and couldn't figure it out. But we had done the survey with her, and we had known that her sisters were Jehovah's Witnesses, and they were getting her involved with the witnesses, and that they even somehow, she doesn't have internet, but they did this whole thing, and when she would call in, they knew if she would call in or she didn't call in, and it was very much upsetting them when she was not calling in, because they knew she was coming to Jacksonville. But she kept saying, I know that's wrong. I can't find anything in the Bible that they're teaching. And but we found out that she was saved. When she was saved, she was sprinkled in the Salvation Army Church. It is a church, ladies. That was very interesting. We knew it was a church, but we really did not know that that's what they did, that they sprinkle. They do. And so when we got to Acts 8, and she read about the eunuch going down into the water, I'll never forget her expression. She says, Rob, I know that's what I need to do, but I'm so scared of water. And Rob says, well, Miss Tony, he says, you'll be okay. I haven't lost one yet. Where she just died laughing at him, thinking that was funny. And she says, well, I know that's what I need to do, because that's what the Bible says that I need to do. And so we called Cade, and he came to help with the baptism as well. And as I was back there with her, I mean, she was just shaking so bad going down those steps, and I was trying to help her down. And as she got down into the water, of course, Rob was explained to her, what he was going to do, and he told her, he said, now Miss Tony, close your eyes and close your mouth. And she says, okay. Well, when she went down into the water, her mouth went wide open. All the water went gushing into her mouth. So she comes up out of the water, gasping for air. And finally, and when she pulled herself together, I'll never forget, she looks up at Rob and says, Rob, you tried to kill me. We love Miss Tony. She's got a wonderful sense of humor, and she is our family. And we realized something with Miss Tony when she was receiving all the cards and all the love that she was shown, that this was the first step towards the Bible study. The second ingredient could be door knocking. In Revelation 3:20 it reads, Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and will sup with him and he with me. I realize, ladies, this is probably another one of those things that we always don't feel comfortable doing, going to the door, because we never know what kind of reaction we're going to receive when we go to someone's door. And so what we have done through the years is when we would go door knocking, we would always hand deliver one of our issues. And so what we would do is we would take a route, because I know a lot of congregations have many routes, and there's no way we can hit all those routes. So we would change it up every year what route we would hit, and we would hand deliver it to them. Now, what we used to do when we would do this, we would always on the back page, this is your part of the house to house, we would advertise the gospel meeting. That doesn't work nowadays. That may have worked in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. We could invite people to our meetings, and yes, they would come. We can do that today, and a lot of times, we've spent all these hours out in the hot sun, and then we come to our meeting and nobody shows up. And that can be very discouraging to members. So now what we encourage congregations to do is when you have something for the local community, make sure that's what you put on the back of your house to house and hand deliver it to them. Whether it's like a VBS, a community outreach, a community meal, something that you're doing for them can be advertised on the back of house to house. If you would like to know more about door knocking, of course, we have on the House to House YouTube page, there is tips that train you how to door knock. But if you would like to learn a whole lot more, we are doing the American Mission Campaign now that we started last year that Rob talked about. This year, of course, we're doing it in Covington, Tennessee, and Knoxville, Tennessee. And I know at Covington, they're actually making us a door. And we're going to get to go to the door, and we're going to role play so people know what to say when they go to the door, and kind of experience different scenarios is what people might say behind that door. Because last year, a lot of people didn't really understand what we were truly trying to do. So this time we're going to be a little bit more targeted when we go door knocking. And so what our plan is we get as many congregations to come and learn these principles, and then they can go back to their home congregations and do this as well. So this is an excellent opportunity to learn more about how to door knock. While we were at Willette, as I said, we would go door knocking at least once a year, and we came across Gary Williamson and invited him to our services. He came one Sunday, and Nick Jones and Rob started studying with him. And the one thing that we learned about Gary was that he had been an urban Christian. He'd been away from the church for over 20 years. So they started studying with him using the one method study, Does It Matter? We believe that we would have never found Gary if we did not knock on his door. Door knocking reaches those who cannot be reached with any other method. The third ingredient could be mailing out house to house, heart to heart. In Acts 2:46 it reads, "They continually daily with one accord in the temple and breaking bread from house to house did eat their meats with gladness and singleness of heart." Once a month, the congregation should get an email about all the requests for the tracts, the DVDs, or the home Bible study material in your area. One thing that we used to always do at all the congregations that we attended was when we would get those requests, because a lot of times what they'll do is people in your community, they will fill out this part of your house to house, and they will mail it in to house, and then they will send you their name and address and what they request. Now there has been times where they will actually send it directly to the church. And what we used to always do when we would get those requests, we would just mail it to them. But we were never getting, we were never hearing from them ever again. And so one thing that we started to do, and when we moved to Jacksonville, I'll never forget, Rob went up to Miss Deb, one of the secretaries, and said, "Well, when we get one of those requests, will you put it in my mailbox?" And she looked at Rob very puzzled, like, "Why do you want to do that? I've always, just mailed them out." And he says, "Well, I know." He says, "But I want to try something." And so she said, "Oh, okay, I'll put it in your box." And she did. And what we have learned is personal contact is always better. And this is how we met Miss Brenda Glaze. Now, it took us a little while to figure out where she lived, because we were not very, we didn't understand some of the addresses. It was northwest, southwest addresses, and we'd never lived in a community like that. And so we kept going to this house and kept going to this house, and nobody was ever home. Well, we live in a college town, and finally one of the college students answered the door, and she said, "No, I'm not Brenda Glaze, but maybe I can help you." And so we showed her the address, and she said, "Oh, you just need to go across the street and you'll probably find her." And he said, "Oh, okay, thank you." One thing, ladies, never give up, because sometimes when you're doing this, it may take you a little bit to get people at home, because people have odd schedules. And that was one thing, we were going to be pretty persistent to find Miss Brenda. And we're so glad that we did. When we found her, of course, she was peeping out the door when she saw Rob. Me, when I go door knocking or go to the door, I don't always feel very comfortable doing it, and I always try to hide. Well, I knew if Miss Brenda couldn't see me, she was not going to open that door very wide. So I thought, well, I've got to bring myself to where she could see me. When she saw me, she felt more comfortable, and we introduced ourselves and explained to her why we were there. And she looked at Rob and she said, "Well, that's awful nice of you." She said, "But you could have just mailed it to me." And Rob says, "I know, I could have, but I wouldn't have ever gotten to meet you." And she said, "Oh, well, that's true." And so as we were talking, I'll never forget, she looks at Rob and says, "Rob, do you know anything about the Bible?" I think our eyes about popped out of our sockets at this point. And Rob goes, "Well, yes, just a little bit." She says, "Well, good." She says, "I've just gotten married to Daniel, and he knows nothing about the Bible. Can you teach him?" So we were like, "Sure." And so we immediately started those studies with them, and they both obeyed the gospel. And of course, she was very zealous when she learned the gospel. She was ready to tell everybody what she had learned. And so we were able to convert one of their good friends, Winford, and also Geneva, who Rob just talked about in the last session. But one thing that we learned through this situation is we believe that we would have never met Brenda if we had just mailed her the tracts and the DVDs instead of hand delivering it to her. The fourth ingredient could be getting involved in the New Movers ministry. You might think, well, what is New Movers? Well, this is something that House to House provides that you can get involved in, and what they will do is they will give you the names and addresses of all those that have recently moved into your area. And in this area, there's an average of 14 new movers that move into this area. And sometimes, like us living in a college town, it gets very hard sometimes to decipher who's really moving in, or they've moved from house to house. So sometimes it can get tricky on that. So we just really have to look at that and see. But they're able to give you that information of those that are moving in. And what we decided, because we were not involved in the New Movers at Willette, they had just basically started this. And so when we found out about it, we said, we need to come up with a plan. How can we as a congregation welcome our new families into our community? So what I did was I go to your local Dollar Tree and I find a basket. And I thought, well, what can we put in that basket? Now, in your papers that I gave you, you will find a list that looks like this, and it's got 3 options. The cleaning supplies option, there's household items, and then there's food items. So these are just some samples of things that you can take to people. Because I know during COVID, at some point, there was a lot of times I couldn't find all the cleaning supplies, so I had to come up with the paper, and sometimes it was opposite. So sometimes, ladies, you have to get very creative in doing the baskets. It really depends on what your Dollar Tree has. And I noticed at least y'all got 3. That's wonderful. So you've got lots of options that you can shop around to. And so, and as I said, sometimes there was one point I was trying to look for a basket. I couldn't find this basket. I looked everywhere in the store. And so we've had to get very creative. Sometimes I've gotten a bucket. Sometimes I've gotten a dish pan. And even one time when I couldn't find anything, it was just so happened to be Easter. The only basket I could find in that whole store was an Easter basket. So I just pulled out all the little ribbon, and it was a cute basket. So you may have to get a little bit creative with that as well at times. But we put things in it like paper towels, a toilet bowl cleaner, a toilet bowl brush, trash bags, a antibacterial cleaner, laundry detergent, a dishwashing detergent, a bathroom cleaner, and lastly, you get some kind of cleaning cloths. Now, if there's ladies in the church that know how to make these really nice scrubbies. I love those things, ladies. They're wonderful when you're scrubbing those pots and pans, or dishcloths. Put that in that basket, because it's going to make it a little bit more personable when we can put things like that in our baskets. And so once we get these together, we also want to make sure that we put information about the church in there as well. Whether it's your house to house, a bulletin, something that's got the information on that. And then what we suggest is go to your local businesses that might help somebody that has just recently moved into the area. Because when you move in, you don't know who you can trust as far as a mechanic, an electrician, a contractor, anything like that. That's very helpful to a new mover, because when they moved here, like I said, that was one of the hardest things for me to figure out. Well, who can we trust? And so that just gives them a little bit of extra help as well, by putting their business cards in there as well. And then you may be asked to deliver one of these baskets when you get the basket together. And a lot of times when you go to the door, you're going to get a good response. And one thing that we've learned is if we're the first ones to reach out to them first, they're more likely to come and visit us again, And so when you get a good result from that door, put them on your contact list. Start sending them cards, welcoming them to the community. And when you do your cards, I didn't say this earlier, make sure that you put Wood Avenue Church of Christ on there so they know where the cards are coming from. Either write it out, or if you've got a business card, put that in there as well. Something that they can identify where these cards are coming from. Let me introduce you to Miss Kim Bullock. Kim had recently moved into the area, and House to House also will mail them a new movers edition to them. Of course, it's going to have all your information, the church's information, phone numbers, and times of services. And then 2 weeks later, they're going to mail out a postcard that looks like this. And so they're going to get more mail from the church. And then there again on the back, it's going to have all your information, the times of services. And so they're getting a lot of mail from the church. And so when she started receiving that, she immediately called the church office because she did not have a ride to services. And so we started picking her up, and as soon as she called the secretary immediately went and got her a basket and took it to her to welcome her to the community. And so we started picking her up, getting to know her. And the one thing that we learned about Miss Kim was that she had also fallen away from the church. And so when we learned that, we did the one method study, Does It Matter? Because she needed to be reminded of her first love. She was then restored and is now a faithful member of the church. The fifth ingredient could be making visitor bags for those who are visiting the congregation. In Romans 16:16 it reads, "Salute one another with a holy kiss. The churches of Christ salute you." This was something that we just started doing at Jacksonville. Jacksonville, we had a lot of visitors coming in our doors. We have lots of entrances and exits, so people were coming from every direction. But we were not getting their contact information. We knew nothing about them when they visited us. So we had to come up with a plan. Okay, how can we get that information from them? Because a lot of times when they come in, they're just going to sit down, and then immediately after services, they're out the door. And we can tell them to fill out that card in the pew pack in front of them, and they're not going to fill it out. So what we have learned is, here again, I have your list. There's a list of things that we put in our new our visitor bags, and so that just kind of gives you an idea. But I'm going to show you here again. I go to your local Dollar Tree and I get a bag, and now somebody, one of these young girls, they have perfect drawing, and they can do this without stencils. Me, I have to stencil. But get somebody to do your bags. I know at Jacksonville, one month we had the kids decorate the bags. So there's many ways that we can get a lot of people involved in doing these works. And so I buy a bag, and we put things in it like a notepad, an ink pen. Now if you have an ink pen with the church's name, put that in there. That way they remember where they got it from. Tissues, mints, gum, hand sanitizer, chapstick, lotion, and then lastly, I go and get a cup. Does anybody here know what a Cricut machine is? Okay, I see a lot of heads. Go and get the vinyl stickering and write out Wood Avenue, Church of Christ, and put that on your cup. That way it's kind of a souvenir of where they got it from, and it's just a nice cup that they can use every day. And so we put that in there as well. Now, if you have women that are very talented and can make things, have your ladies get together, make certain things for this. I know some ladies make keychains. The kids will make keychains for them. As I said, make it personable. It doesn't have to necessarily be any of this stuff, but just putting that little extra touch to it helps. And so what we suggest to the school is when we see a visitor, we have families that are assigned in our congregation. There's 3 areas in our congregation. So we have maybe a couple families each in those areas. They know when they see a visitor come in, their job is to introduce themselves and get to know them. And so one thing we want to suggest is not when they come in the door, we don't want to attack them. They're nervous. The first thing that a visitor wants to do when they come into a building, they want to sit down. So let them sit down and kind of get a little bit more relaxed, and then you can go and introduce yourself and say, we've got this bag for you. Thank you for visiting. And in that bag, make sure you have that contact card, because you want to be able to pull that out, whether it's you or them that fills it out. Make sure you can read it. Make sure that you've got everything on it that you need, and that way when you get that information, here again, put them on your list, and because you want to start sending them cards. And that's one thing that we tell our families. So we would, in order to get that contact information, because sometimes it's a little awkward and you don't know how to say it. So a lot of times we tell them, say, well, we're a congregation that loves to send you cards. We have that information, because some people are a little bit, they don't always might not feel comfortable in giving you that information. But if you say it that way, a lot of times they'll say, oh, well, sure, and they'll give it to you. So when they do, you make sure you put them on this list, because you want to immediately start sending them cards, thanking them for visiting and welcoming them back at each opportunity that they have. When we met Miss Ellen, we immediately gave her a bag to welcome her. Perry was not able to come at first because he was not feeling well. And we always have this custom, when a visitor comes in, we always invite them out to eat, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. And we did that with her as well. We said, well, when Perry comes, we would love to take you out to eat. And she said, oh, well, we would love that. And so when he got to feeling better, we took him out to eat. Now, when we take somebody out to eat, a lot of times Rob is trying to find something that we have in common. And so it just so happened that he loved college football, and he loved Alabama. And it just so happened that was a Sunday, that Monday was going to be the college championship football game. And of course, Alabama wasn't in it at that year, but he was still talking about how he was going to watch the game. So we said, and I started feeling kicks under the table. My kids know, hey, Mom, here it is. And I knew it too. And so he said, well, would y'all like to come over and watch the game with us? And they said, I'll never forget Perry looked over at Ellen and says, can we do that? And she says, well, I don't know, why not? And so they came, and we just had appetizers, and we were watching the game. And Rob, of course, always kind of waited. He didn't want to interrupt during the game. So he was kind of waiting for the game to get out of control, and it did. And so we were learning more about them. And one thing that we learned was Perry, he was raised a Methodist, and Ellen was raised a Baptist. And they had been going back and forth to both denominations, and they said, we are so tired of not being able to hear them preaching about from the Word. And when Rob says, well, we're glad you came to Jacksonville, and she said, yes, we're just so impressed with y'all, because that's Brother Allen preaches the Word. And so we said, well, what brought you to the church here? And I'll never forget what she said. In 1999, when we moved to Jacksonville, we started receiving house-to-house, heart-to-heart. Ladies, it took them 21 years to step foot into the church building, but we're so glad they did. And the reason I say that is because where the church is located, we are located right across the street from the college. And other people on the other side of town, they don't have any reason to come over there. So we really truly believe that they would have never known about us had they not gotten that publication. We were able to start those studies and building that relationship with them, and we were able to baptize them. And one thing that we learned with them was those visitor bags helped us know who is visiting and who is a potential prospect for the Bible study. The sixth ingredient could be, when you see a visitor come in, always invite them out to eat, or have a family that is willing to cook and invite them over for a meal. Normally when they come to visit, they're not going to take you up on that offer because they normally have plans. But so we always tell them, well, the next time you come visit, we would love to take you out to eat. And that's what they do. They'll come back if you extend some kind of form of hospitality to them. And so that's what we've learned through the years. We want to be hospitable to those that are coming to the services. In Luke 5:30-31, it reads, "But their scribes and Pharisees murmured against his disciples, saying, Why do you eat and drink with publicans and sinners? And Jesus answering said unto them, They that are whole need not a physician, but they that are sick." Even Jesus ate with sinners and publicans, and we need to too. The impact this has on a visitor is usually one that they never forget. They're not used to someone inviting them out to eat or having someone invite them into their home. It makes them feel like you truly care. What I would suggest for you ladies to do is come to get meat and come up with a plan as to which families would be willing to take a visitor out to eat, or those that may want to have somebody in your home. The main thing is, ladies, work together. This is a congregational work. Whether it is, I know lately I've heard a lot of widows, they're opening their homes. They said, oh, you can use my home. And so they're opening their homes. And then they have somebody that'll cook the meal. Then may have somebody that comes and cleans up after they eat. And then sometimes, if there's children involved, have these young girls come and help take care of those kids. That way that study is not distracted and the teacher can go ahead and do the study. So we can work together when we do evangelism. And the one thing that we have learned through the years is the more that we get involved in evangelism, the more souls that we can save. This is Miss Geneva, who's right beside me. I know she's kind of hard to see with the lights, but anyway, she's sitting next to me, and then next to her is her neighbor, Margie. Well, I kept hearing about Margie. Geneva kept talking to me, and I said, well, who's Margie? And she said, oh, she's my neighbor. And I said, oh, okay. She says she comes and will help with the girls. And I said, well, Geneva, have you invited Margie to services? She says, no, not yet, but I know I need to. And I said, well, why don't you invite her sometime? She says, well, I think I might do that. And so it just so happened on a Sunday evening they were together, and she said, well, Miss Margie, I've got to go. Me and the girls were going to services. And she said, well, where do you go? And she said, she told her Jacksonville, and she said, oh, isn't that the church that does the house to house? And she said, yes, it is. She says, oh, I love that publication. Can I come with you? And Geneva says, sure, come on. So she came to services, and we started talking to her and getting to know her. We started taking them out to eat. And of course, when she was being shown all this love, of course it wasn't hard at all to get her to commit to a study. And so we had Miss Geneva with us as we were studying, and we're so thankful that we did, because she was a really big help in the process. And one thing we didn't even know, Margie didn't know us, and so I always ask our prospects, I said, what would make you feel the most comfortable? Would you want to go to the church building? Because a lot of times that's what they're going to want to do. They're going to come to a church building, but not always. So we asked Miss Margie, well, would you like to do it at the church building? She says, no. I said, okay, would you like to do it at your home? No. I said, well, would you like to come to our home? She says, yes, I want to come to your home. I said, okay, come on. And so we did our first study. But we didn't realize that the second study, when she came, she takes care of children. And luckily, I still have my kids at home, so they could take care of these children during the study, which is very helpful. And so they would take care of the kids, as we would do the study. And usually on the third study, we always normally will do it at the church building, because we're right there at the baptistry, and it's just a lot easier for everybody if we just do it there. And so that third study, we did it at the church building. And Rob can pretty much, he's very good about telling the preacher, now at this time, I'll probably have a baptism. And so, but not with Miss Margie. It took her a little bit longer, and that's okay, because sometimes with people, when they're processing on everything that they have just learned, it takes them a little bit longer. And so she had some things in her life that she was dealing with, and that's why I said it was a good thing that Geneva was there, because she could help her through some of these things that she was going through, because Geneva had gone through some as well. And so, but I think it was almost an hour later, she was baptized, and so we were so thankful that she became a Christian, because now she really helps Geneva with those girls, especially when she has to work. She brings the girls to services now. We have used this approach of hospitality many times and have had many conversions doing so. Many of our converts have said if we did not do this, they may not be Christians today. When we open our homes or take visitors out to eat, it can lead to a potential Bible study. The seventh ingredient could be doing some kind of community outreach to let your community know you care and where you are located. In Acts 2:47 it reads, praising God and having favor with all the people, and the Lord added to the church daily such as should be saved. We should try to develop favor in our community. At Jacksonville, we do 3 meals a year. We do the shrimp broil, then we do the Big Pig Day. I'm not a big fan, but I don't want to see what I'm eating. But anyway, and then we do the chicken and hot dog days in summer. Now, some congregations will do things like feed the first responders. They'll do back to school backpacks, or they'll do some kind of clothing giveaway, a winter coat giveaway, or something to that effect. One thing that when you do these activities for the community, make sure you advertise properly. A lot of times you can't trust the local newspaper. Newspapers are kind of going obsolete now. So at Jacksonville, the elders have cards made up, postcards, that tells about our meals, and we can go out into our communities and invite those who are not members of the church. And so one thing is, you want to make sure that they know that you're doing it for them, especially if you're feeding the first responders. You want to make sure they know about it. Go to them, because I've actually had some women tell me that they did that. They tried to feed the first responders and nobody showed up. So that can be very discouraging. So make sure that when you do something like that, go to them, let them know what you're doing for them. We must strive to have a good reputation for the non-Christians. Our community needs to know that we care about them. We recently had a whole family obey the gospel from coming to one of our meals. We would have never met them if somebody from the congregation had not invited them. And one thing, when we first moved to Jacksonville, we just kind of wanted to see what they did. And what they were doing was good. They were going to everybody, introducing themselves to everybody that was there that they did not know. But we weren't getting that contact information. So the next meal that we did, we said, well, let's do something a little bit different. When we have our meal, make sure you find somebody you don't know, sit with them, talk to them, get to know them, try to get that information from them. And that way we can keep that door open, and we can invite them to services. We can call them, check on them to see if they have any needs. One thing that some congregations do that work good for them, but that may not work so well for others. So one thing we've got to do is we've got to be patient, and things will work out for the best. The main thing is that you're looking for that one soul who has an honest and humble heart. The 8th ingredient could be doing some kind of benevolent work. In Acts 4:32 through 35, it reads, "The multitude of them that believed were of one heart and of one soul. Neither said any of them that aught of the things which he possessed was his own, but they had all things common. And with great power gave the apostles witness of the resurrection of the Lord Jesus, and great grace was upon them all. Neither was any among them that lacked, for as many as were possessors of lands or houses sold them, and brought the prices of things that were sold, and laid them down at the apostles' feet, and distribution was made unto every man according as he has need." We need to come up with ways that we can help our communities out, whether it's a food pantry, a benevolent building, or anything that we can think of that will help our local community. I realize, ladies, the church has been burned for so long, giving money to pay light bills, giving food or clothing, giving gas money, or even paying a bill. A lot of times they'll come and ask, and we never see them again. So what we suggest to the school is when somebody calls and asks for benevolent help, invite them to services. see if they'll come to services. If they do, and it's during a Bible class hour, what we do is we have families that are assigned, that are ready, that can do a Bible study, and we take them into a classroom and we start doing Back to the Bible, lesson 1, or whatever study method you use. And that way, we're teaching them the Bible as well. We're not just handing them over the stuff and never seeing them again. And so, and we've seen a lot more success when we've done it this way than we've done it in times past. And as I said, this here is Geneva. There's 2 girls in the picture. Her oldest, Nyla, Nakia, I think, was visiting a friend this day, and then Aisha. And as soon as Brenda was baptized, she immediately invited her and the 3 girls. And when they came, Miss Sherry Harris immediately started studying the Bible with her. And as they were doing those studies, they lost everything they owned in a house fire. The church immediately rallied around her and those 3 girls to help them with everything that they needed. And also during this time, as Rob told you, she was realizing her marriage was not right as well. And she was realizing that she needed to put him away. And she did. And she literally, it took a year process to put him away. And they lived in they lived in a hotel for a year. And after that year, when she was able to get an apartment, of course the church again helped her and those 3 girls get the furniture and things that they needed. And I'm happy to announce that I guess about a month ago, we were able to baptize the oldest, Nyla. As she was being baptized, Nakia was sitting with Hannah, and she was just crying. So we know, ladies, that we are very close to teaching her the gospel as well. And that was one thing that we were hoping, was when we converted Geneva, that these 3 girls as well will become Christians too. Benevolence will not bring lost souls to Christ unless we care enough to try to study with them. It should always be done to try to win souls. This is the purpose of benevolence. The 9th ingredient could be for us to be a teacher or a silent partner. In 2 Timothy 2:2 it reads, "And the things that thou hast heard of me among many witnesses, the same commit thou to faithful men, who shall be able to teach others also." We're not all going to feel comfortable in teaching a Bible study, but we can be a silent partner to help with the study. The teacher needs to learn a method and become very familiar with it. At first, of course, when I was learning how to do Back to the Bible, I was always Rob's silent partner, and it was not until our first trip to Jamaica that I did my first one. I can remember how nervous I was in doing it, but I knew it was time for me to study the Bible with the women as well. And so, of course, the more I have done, the more comfortable I have am in doing it. We definitely need more ladies to step up and become teachers and silent partners when teaching other women the gospel. I trained Hannah how to do one in Jamaica as well. She was always my silent partner and was able to watch me do one. I can remember Sister Corinth Duncan came up to her and said, "Hannah, we have this young lady who has been visiting the congregation for several months." She said, "Would you be interested in studying the Bible with her?" And she said yes. And so she was able to teach this young girl. I was her silent partner, and this young lady became a Christian, and she is still a faithful member of the church today in Jamaica. This is a great opportunity for mothers and daughters to work together in soul winning. There is no greater joy than to do this together. My suggestion would be to find out which ladies would want to be a teacher and who would want to be a silent partner. You never know when you may be asked to conduct one, and you will want to be prepared for when the time comes. We need ladies to be willing to teach a Bible study, or who will be a silent partner. Which one will you be? The 10th ingredient could be someone who is willing to be a keeper. We need ladies to help with this work as well, whether it be a husband and wife team or two ladies that have worked with another lady, because we want to help keep the saved saved. Of course, we suggest through the school, as they have a class on Sunday morning, and that is taught, and then they have that. But not only do we want them to be involved in that class, we also want to mentor them through the week. And so what we mean by that is get together, meet them at the church building or their home or whichever way that they feel the most comfortable is. They will go, our keepers will go and do another study with them using books like the Beginning of Our Confidence and the Acts workbook and Growing in Christ as well. And so one thing is, we've learned through the years that these things that we do, this gives them an opportunity, or new converts, to open up in a more private setting and discuss personal issues. Most new converts are not going to ask questions in a large adult class. We never want to give up on the new convert that we've worked so hard to convert. We know that the devil will work very hard to get them back. In Mark 1, 9 through 13, it reads, "And it came to pass in those days that Jesus came from Nazareth of Galilee, and was baptized of John in Jordan. And straightway coming up out of the water, he saw the heavens open, and the Spirit like a dove descending upon him. And there came a voice from heaven saying, Thou art my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. And immediately the Spirit driveth him into the wilderness, and was there in the wilderness 40 days, tempted of Satan, and was with the wild beast, and the angels ministered unto him." As I said, at Jacksonville, we have those who are designated to be keepers. And as I said, they'll go and do a study, and then usually after that study, they will take them out to eat, or even like you see here, they're getting ice cream together. And one thing that we've learned is the more they connect with the members, the less likely they will leave the church. We have had much success with the new converts remaining faithful when we have people assigned to be keepers. In summary, there are 10 ingredients to bring souls to Christ. We can begin by sending cards to those in the community, knock doors, mail out house to house, make and deliver new movers baskets, hand out visitor bags, take the visitors out to eat or have them in your home, do some kind of community outreach, help others with benevolence, teach a study, or be the silent partner, or lastly, keep the saved safe. I hope and pray, ladies, that these things will help you in your personal evangelism. And ladies, I realize I feel like I have just opened the water faucet and just thrown it all at you all at once. So what I do is I leave you with my contact information, my cell phone number, and my email. If you ever have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Because like I said, I realize this is a lot to take in all at one time. I know we're all tired. But I know that we will hear great things from this congregation. Yes.
Hey, I'm sorry to bother you.
No, you're fine.
You were talking about personal contacts and where to get them. Where there was a couple of places you said that you could get like new people to the neighborhood and stuff like that.
Okay, like, are you talking about your new movers?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, what you do is they can call house to house and let them know that you want to be involved in that. work, and they give you those names and addresses. And when they give you those names and addresses, that's when you can go out and meet them and invite them to services.
Is there a cost for house to house?
There is a small fee for that. I think it may be like $5. It's not very much. But I think it's because the post office charges them to give out that information.
We get, who get that in Marion County right now? Right now, Todd River was good at their Robertson.
Yes.
It's a very wonderful publication. It's
Yes.
a really good Bible study for yourself, if you just want to follow through it. That's very good.
Yes, it is very good. People love it. And that's a good contact. That's why when we can deliver that, because people do enjoy reading it. And so.
Sometimes is it heart to heart or house to house?
House to house.
Both.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I think we actually get one in our house, from a church that's actually closer to us than
Right.
we go to church.
Right.
It's from the Woodlawn Church of Christ, they
Oh.
send them out, and I do enjoy looking at them.
Yes, yes, a lot of people really enjoy.
There's some good studies.
Yes, there is, and that's why people like them. They're so threatening.
Right.
When they-
When you want to do it,
Right.
the studies are good.
Right, they are. So, that's why we highly encourage you, when you go out, have that in your hand, because you'll never know what kind of, what people are gonna say. In fact, when we were at Hillsborough, I had a lady, she was so excited when we came to the door, she says, "Oh, I'm the local, secretary for the Methodist Church." And she said, "I love that publication. I even put some of your articles in our bulletin."
Oh, yeah.
So, you never know. You never
I
know.
just think it's interesting that another
Yes.
church near, it's actually
Yes.
closer to us than
Right.
Wood Avenue.
Right.
They're sending us, notes.
Yes, yes, and that's usually what congregations will do. They'll pick right, close around.
Yes.
It's hard when you've got so many churches in an area. And you really, you don't want to step out into the other,
I'm sure they do it by zip code.
Yes, they do, That's what they do.
So is there generally one contact list for the congregation, or, because you say, you get the information, put it on the contact list,
Mhm.
and then cards can go out to that person?
Right.
I'm keeping my own contact list.
Okay. Are you talking about because Rob talks about, I don't know if he does it, I know he's gonna talk to the men about, we have a card that everybody, he was saying, we write down 10 contacts, that we know, 10 people that we want to reach out to. We write their names down. In fact, I think I have one in my Bible, I do. And then you write their names on this. Now, when they reach a part of their life where they fit one of these categories, they go from your personal, this is your personal list. When it's time for you to reach out to them, we have contact cards out on our table, and churches will purchase those, and they'll have them on their contact, on their evangelism table. And when it goes to the contact card, that's when it comes on to your congregational contact list. And that's when you get the congregation involved in sending out those cards to them. Does that make sense? The men are gonna learn a lot about that. When you're enrolled in the school, it's a 52 weeks that you're enrolled, and then you're gonna get tips. Like the first few days, I think you get tips of what you can do. And then it just keeps going. Because you can't start with all these things and just start doing them all right now. These take time. And that way, that's why we do that. We just slowly help you get involved in each one of these areas. Because this can be overwhelming to a congregation. And but that is what I was talking to the elders about. the personal, this is your personal list. And then when you know that they're struggling with something and want to put them on that list, that's what that is. Does that make sense? You're gonna learn more about it, I promise.
But the postcard that gets mailed out, that
Yes.
had our information on it, how does that go about? Like, how does that happen?
When you're enrolled in that, the house to house will automatically send it to them.
Just to random people, not necessarily visitors then?
No, that's your new movers, those that have just
Oh,
moved
they're gonna
in.
automatically
Yes,
send those to the
yes,
members. That's
new
what I was wondering.
movers,
Okay.
yes, yes.
I have a question.
Okay,
When you're married to Bob.
Yes.
And he invites anyone into your home
right,
for a meal.
Right.
How do you stretch your meal? What do you prepare?
that, right, yes, that is the reason I wrote recipes for evangelism.
That's why when I read recipe, I
Uh-huh.
thought, what's her recipe and how do you stretch it? When he invites your home, it's open
Right. Yes.
anytime.
Right, yes,
What do you prepare?
well, I,
That you can stretch
yeah,
a
it's-
meal to feed all he invites in.
it can be challenging sometimes because,
That's practical.
yes,
Very
I've had
practical.
that, we've had that happen where, I mean, our family, sometimes if we have a bunch of people, you know, we won't eat as much. But luckily, the one good thing about living in Jacksonville, we live literally a minute down from the grocery store, and I can have one of my kids go and get extra stuff. So that has been a help to me because I haven't always had that, especially in other places that we've lived. It takes a little bit longer. So there has been times that we do have to stretch, but we just do the best we can. But it's truly not about the food. They're so excited to be in your home and just talk to you. That's all it's about. Because if you've noticed now, our world, everybody is on these phones. There's no communication going on whatsoever. So when somebody actually pays attention to them and talks to them, oh, they're just so excited to be in your home. So I have learned. I used to think it was the food, but it's really not. It's really just about having that relationship building, because we are getting so far away from communicating with everybody.